Thank you, my colleagues, for your patience, and we're back from recess. And to the people of Guam, thank you for your patience also. We're back from recess, and we will continue on with the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing on Bill 282-35. We are still on page 134 on the Budget Act. Senator Kelly, we will continue with yours and just complete your amendment. And we have a question from Senator Lee. Senator Lee, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just a point of order on that amendment that Senator Kelly had introduced. Are we going to vote for the authorization of funds and then for the amendment? Is that what we're doing? It's a two-step process?
No, we'll be voting for everything one shot. The authorization is built within the same amendment, not unless you wanted to break it down. The authorization will allow the other parts of the amendments to work. So it'll be just one shot.
So perhaps, Mr. Chair, I can ask a few questions that would help to clarify it for me and perhaps for my colleagues. So I just want to be clear that the public understands it, that I understand the history of this money, right? So this was money that we had passed in a bill to appropriate money for FESPAC from the 1% of the arts funding. Is that correct? So there's like a QC that's paid, and so they take 1% of that money and it has to be directed to the arts. Is that correct, Mr. Chair? Or Steve?
Yes, so
no, it's supposed to stand by, Senator Kelly. Steve, if you can go ahead and comment, please. Steve?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
So I was just asking, Mr. Guerrero, the history of these funds. This is the 1% for the arts. Is that correct? And it was a QC money that was directed towards FESPAC, the $200K that we're discussing in this amendment?
The only thing I know about this $200,000 when I was approached about it.
You got muted, Steve. Unmute, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. The only thing I know about this funding source of this $200,000, which was brought to my attention, was it's utilizing the 13th annual FESPAC appropriation. I was told in this particular fund that there was approximately, I believe, $350,000, of which $200,000 has been authorized by the board to be utilized by CAHA. Now, it is also my understanding that this $200,000 is part of a transfer that comprises of 4 other agencies.
Right.
And that there was the initial transfers, I believe, amounted to about 110,000. Let me see. Yeah, the total amount came up to about $110,723. That's the movement between 4 agencies, which included CAHA. Okay. Now, because of this 200,000 being also thrown into the mix, which is not part of the revenues that's what's found within the bill, there was a couple of suggestions that were made to kind of like proper how to make this happen.
Right.
And when the good Senator Helen Marsh gave it to us, what it was is basically an authorization, and please correct me, Senator, if I'm wrong, Senator Marsh, was an authorization by the FESPAC group, the
CAHA board.
Council, yeah, okay, the board that allowed them to use the $200,000, which the senator is also using a portion of that, I believe to the amount of $89,277 as part of this movement of funds between the 4 agencies.
Correct. Okay.
So,
no, if I could stop you there or just add a point of information. So we were very careful. This is supposed to be for art programs. So the $200,000, we needed that stabilization for the federal matching. TAF, I mean, it may not come in. Even general fund, it may not come in. But we wanted them to have as much matching as possible from a very, very stable source, and to have it fit within its larger mandate of being for the arts. So the $200,000 stays there. And what we did is we shifted the more unstable money, if you will, the general funds and some of the TAF in very small amounts to the others.
And that's great. That was what I was going to explain, was that was the first approach we were given. And then we came back and told them, I said, you know, just to lessen the confusion, we suggested to just maybe get the authority to utilize the FESPAC money and basically have no transfer done. And that the only transfer to be done between the four agencies was the $110,000, which would have made it a lot easier and clearer. But I understand where Senator Marsh was coming from, to wanting to secure the $200,000 in COG for the match requirement. That we understood. So the way she explained it was kind of thorough. Yes, and it does match, it does make sense, it does balance. It's just that I believe by the time the senator did her explanation, it kind of like got everybody like, wow, you know, and that's why Senator Nelson was saying it was an extremely long amendment, but it was kind of simple in a sense if you kind of followed it, if you had it in front of you. It does match, it does balance. It's just the mechanism that was chosen was maybe a little bit more on the confusing side, but it does all match up.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Steve, I think I just want to clarify again for myself and for the public, we understand that we are in the middle of this pandemic. And so, you know, my gut feeling and desire is to want to take any penny that we can find and direct it towards public health agencies at this time, direct it towards DPHSS. But in my understanding and my reading of this money, we cannot direct it to DPHSS because it's part of that 1% for the arts. Is that correct, Steve?
I'm not too sure about the restriction of the 1%. I mean, I'm gonna rely on Senator Kelly Marsh to help me on this. If there is a restriction on the use of those funds, then yes. But right now, I won't attest to it because I'm not familiar with it.
Yes, well, there's two parts to this. One is that by law, it is the 1% for the arts, and then by contract, there's an agreement of exactly how it goes through these steps and processes. But the other was, and you know, I haven't thought about FESPAC in some ways since February, really, and it only occurred to me yesterday that we actually had gone through the process of committing ourselves to the airline tickets. And so we had actually paid a deposit and obligated. I don't have the exact amount before me, but I think it's about $140,000 are obligated through that deposit for the airline tickets in, just obligated or encumbered in that way.
Okay, Senator Lee.
That is 120 I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that's the 120 that's existing in the account already. That's not this money that we're talking about, correct?
So there's 350,000 as you talked about. 200,000 is what we're trying to provide. Yes. And then with the remaining 150,000, like I said, you know, and just trying to get myself back into understanding where we were at FESPAC when we left. And I even had to call the head of delegation to help me remember where we were at in things. We had paid the down payment for the tickets. I bought my own ticket. I'm in the same boat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. That's helpful. So I'm just trying to demonstrate to the public that although, you know, even if we wanted to, it's challenging, it's difficult for us to direct these excess funds now to public health, because that was a huge thing when we passed this bill for the FESPAC money. And the reason why we did that is because it has to go towards the arts. And with that point being made, why is this full amount not going to CAHA? Why are we piecing it off and putting it into all these other different agencies and what seems like, or what could be considered by others to be pet projects, and kind of funneling the money there? If it's truly the 1% for the arts, why is it not going towards the arts?
Yeah, so that's why we have it staying with the arts. The $200,000 absolutely stays with the arts. And
but this
like I said,
goes
the
further
other
and
funds,
it takes the money and it gives it to DPHR and HRRA. And I am the biggest advocate for DPR. I've been at
yes,
every public hearing on the pool, but I'm
Yes.
just trying to figure out how this all matches up.
yes. Well, in the discussions, it was really about providing that stable set of funds. And, you know, as I mentioned, with the general fund and the TAF, we really don't know what's going to happen to them. And so and I didn't want to disrupt any other committee. And like I said earlier, I tried to have all the agencies talk to all of them and just have it be as minimal of a patch as possible. And there's absolutely no guarantee that 16,000 will ever make it to HRA or 30,000 to DPR, because yeah, their monies from there are small, and yeah, and we don't know absolutely what's going to happen to that money.
So, Mr. Chair, with that explanation, I'm going to have to object to this amendment because the money doesn't go directly to CAHA in my mind. It doesn't go, that 1% for the arts is not being strictly adhered to. We're taking it and we're giving it to CAHA, then we're turning around and we're having CAHA like putty it out to these other agencies, and it's unclear on how it relates to the arts. That was my one question, and I would just like that answered before we move forward. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so to clarify again, it's the unstable general fund monies and the unstable TAF monies that are going to the others. And the board did think about all of this very seriously. It was not a light decision for them, but they did support it.
Right. Senator Kelly, let's make it very clear. The 200,000 is going to CAHA, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, that's one, that's done. It's going to the arts, the FESPAC money, okay? So we don't need to hear anything else about it.
Okay.
Now,
Yes.
what you're asking for now is, you're asking in your amendment in CAHA's budget of the general fund and tourist attraction, that's where you're taking money to give to your other agency. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that clears it up. The issue of the arts, the CAHA money, the FESPAC money of the arts is going to CAHA. It's not going to anybody else. CAHA has agreed to, on the general fund that they were appropriate, and tourist attraction fund, to be able to give up some of their appropriation to assist their the other agencies such as Parks and Rec, Territorial Band, and HRRA. Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear about that part, and that's how that's being worked out. Okay, does anybody else, Senator Lee, did that pretty much kind of like answer your question that you were concerned with about the arts?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm just still going to have to register my objection to it because
right.
it's unclear. It doesn't, we're giving it to CAHA, but again, CAHA is turning around and doling it out to these other agencies.
Right, I understand where you come from, but it's not doling out the 200,000, but not a problem. I understand where you come from. Does anybody else like to speak to this motion, please? I'm looking for hands. Senator Therese, please.
Mr. Chair, I'm still trying to open the amendment. I can read page 1, I think, but not the other pages. So if
Does it scroll for you when you scroll? There's a large space, so it may look like it's one page unto itself, but it's actually continues.
It's 8 pages.
Did you want me to put it in the WhatsApp?
well, if you could just tell me if page 1 is the subsection E being amended from Title I.
Let me go to that one, sorry.
The page one, Senator Therese actually gives the authorization to expend the amount of 200,000 from that FESPAC to CAHA, for CAHA to
Okay,
expend.
is it on the drive, OFB? Can you just, is it on the drive?
I put it on the chat, Senator Therese.
And I can't open that one, so I
It's
need
on
to-
the drive, Senator, and
Thank-
and it was also sent to your WhatsApp.
Okay,
I don't know why on my WhatsApp it's only letting me open up one page. Okay, so hold on.
well, and it does look like one page, so it's kind of weirdly
No problem,
laid
Senator
out.
Kelly. Does any other colleague have a problem with opening it up? Well, Senator Therese,
I
Senator
put it on
Paris.
the, sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I put it on the Zoom chat. So the one that, it's the 8-pager. It's underneath.
Okay, does the first page show that it's the amendment to subsection E in Title I, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so I think I can talk on the bill, Mr. Chair. It's,
Please.
I totally understand what the author is trying to do, and I commend her for figuring out a way to do this. She wants to put funds for the arts that belongs with CAHA, and that part I very much agree with. And if it needs to be used now instead of held off for FESPAC, then it needs to be used now, and that was the original intent of the 1% for the arts money anyways. So that part I agree with. The next part's where, and I know what she's doing, and it makes sense. She's putting the TAF funding, she's sharing that to these other agencies and saying, you bank on TAF, that might not come in, but CAHA can't, because CAHA has to meet federal matching requirements if they're going to function correctly. So I very much appreciate that. However, for me, and you know, I know this is tough, but I agree with the first part. Let's put the arts money with CAHA, allow them to spend it if they need to federal match for the rest of their fiscal year. But I don't agree with increasing the budgets of HRRA at this time. HRRA has been waiting for Army Corps of Engineers to do a flood assessment of Hagatna. And I've asked them this many times, and they said that it's in the works now. So I just feel like all of the plans for Hagatna are really contingent on this flood planning. That has to come first, and I've asked them this many times. So for me, I just don't want to put any more money over there until we get this flood assessment. They said Army Corps is going to take care of that. So they don't need cash to do that at this point. I know they have other projects and they're all great, but you know, at this time today, I just feel like while we're prioritizing, I would just not do that at this time to add more money for expenditure over there. And the other one, DPR, I mean, maybe that, but again, so I guess I'm gonna ask to amend this amendment by just deleting the other pages and just leaving page 1. Okay, now I got all the pages here. Yeah, so I think that works.
And if
Well,
I
no,
could-
I need to keep page 1 and no, I would just leave page 1, Mr. Chair, and delete the other pages to rearrange all the TAF money, and just maybe we can do that afterward, you know, after this bill is passed and you really want to do that, we can try to do that. But I don't know, for me, I just want to get that 1% of arts money where it belongs, allow CAHA to do what it needs, and then contemplate the rest later, Mr. Chair.
All right.
But I thank the mover of this amendment, and it's a very, very good idea. Yeah, thank you.
And
right.
just as a point of information, so I too am extremely invested in and concerned with the flood feasibility study. And so you perhaps are aware, but there have been commitments of the Army Corps of Engineers to the governor, and there have been meetings and phone calls and letters that commit to that at their soonest availability. It was planned to start this year, I believe. Now, you know, COVID may be pushing it back, but there is that strong commitment. There has been continuous communications on this, and it is moving forward. They actually found a way to expedite it by updating the 1970s study rather than starting from scratch. So I hope that alleviates that. And the commission is also in here. Without the commission getting any extra funding, they seriously don't have enough to pay for their electricity, even though they're not being charged rent where they are, or Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi is a part of what they're trying to do in outreach in this COVID time. So I just want to mention those as well.
All right, thank you. Madam Vice Speaker, please, you're up. You waved, I saw you wave, ma'am. Madam Vice Speaker, did you want to speak on that?
No, Mr. Chair, I already spoke on this amendment.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay, I apologize. Thank you. I'm looking for, are there any hands that would like to speak? I'm looking for hands. I think, okay, I don't see any hands. Senator Kelly, my only concern is that well, there's a motion, if I'm correct, all right? There's a motion that Senator Therese asked to amend this amendment to delete, I guess, from
Yep.
page 2 to page 8. Am I correct?
Oh, right. She
Stand by, Senator
Okay.
Senator Kelly. I'm addressing Senator Therese. She made
Okay.
a motion to amend. You got that written down so we can vote on that to amend it? Senator Therese, you got it. You're preparing the
Oh,
amendment.
no, I don't have that written down, so I'll just withdraw it if it requires writing. So never mind, I'll withdraw that motion.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that so nobody would question if we have an amendment written. Senator, well, you withdraw it. So is there any objection to withdrawal? There being none, I think we need to do a roll call for that objection, okay? So Joe, let's do the roll call that she withdrawing it and we can all just agree to the withdrawal.
No, Mr. Chair,
Joe, let's do it.
I never submitted it, so I think we don't
Oh,
need
okay,
to-
you never submitted it. Okay, then
Yeah.
we'll just
Correct.
ignore it happened then. Senator Torres, you waved your hand, ma'am.
I was just going to bring up that point, but I just want to briefly say that I rise in support of this amendment by Senator Kelly. He has been working very diligently with her agencies, and in consultation with them, they know what's best for their needs. And also, when we think about the economic recovery of Guam, including tourism, this is a vital component of that. So we have to allow them to do what they need to do, and they decided what is important. So I support her and the agencies. Culture is critical also to the economic recovery of Guam and tourism recovery. So thank you, Senator Kelly, also for all you've done.
All right, moving along. Senator Therese, you have a point of concern because you already spoke on the motion.
Yes, yes. I'm looking at the amendment now, and now I don't see what I thought was page 1, the part that allows use of the funds in Title I. Is that correct?
Let me send you it's hopefully the correct one, because we worked on this very, very closely with OFB and legal for like a week. So there were many versions of it. So let me try to send you what's hopefully the correct one.
Yeah, if you could please send it to all of us.
No, just
Yes,
make sure
absolutely.
OFB gets it. Send it to OFB because I don't know if they bifurcated it or it's, anyways, yeah. So I was trying to delete a page, but when I'm reading this new version now, that's not the page. So yeah. Okay, just wanted to make sure we're all voting on the correct thing, Mr. Chair. That's
Yes. Anybody else who would like to speak that have not spoken? I'm looking. I see no hands. So I'll make a couple comments, and then Senator Kelly, I don't know if you have a closing, probably not, more asking for support, but stand by, Senator Kelly, stand by. I just want to make it very clear. As you read on the amendment, I understand the reservation that some of my colleagues may have about the HRRA. Number one, the funding that's going to be moved there is actually just to help them with supplies, to get a printer and stuff, administrative supplies. That was what was already stated. Okay, so the Army Corps of Engineers Army Corps is not gonna provide them that. It's to do the study, whatever study they need to do. And everything else is actually just to help them administratively. So with that, and my Office of Finance and Budget did work with Senator Kelly, and they didn't see anything wrong with this, and we'll just move. Senator Kelly, do you have a real short closing, please?
Let's see. Just that.
Real short, ma'am.
I put it in WhatsApp. Yeah, we just worked real hard at it. We tried to work together. We tried to stay within our committee and not affect anyone else, and just try to get ourselves, so like I said, we can keep the lights on and look for grants and build up partnerships and serve the community as best we can. So I just ask for your support in helping them be able to make those bare minimum needs and their federal matching grant.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Joe, let's do the roll call and let's move, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Marsh-Taitunu on page 134, this is the 8-page amendment, just so everyone is clear. The 8-page amendment. Chairman Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rajel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Hongan.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Hongan.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Aye.
Senator Lee, nay. Senator Therese Talahi.
Again.
Senator Therese Talahi, aye. Senator Pilo Talahi.
Again.
Senator Pilo Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh-Taitunu.
Hongan.
Senator Marsh-Taitunu, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munoz.
Hongan.
Senator Munoz, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Hongan.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Again.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitugui.
Hongan.
Senator Taitugui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 14 aye votes and 1 nay vote.
Thank you, my colleagues. The motion passes. It will be engrossed in the bill. Senator Kelly, do you have any more amendments? Please, I think you only have one more. And let's close the issue.
Yes, I have one more, and I dispensed with the other one just to be able to move along more quickly here. So shoot. Sorry, because I used this time to get it organized, I thought, and yet it still is not where I thought it was.
Joe, can you make sure we have it uploaded on the Zoom, please, and make sure all the our colleagues here have a copy, Joe?
Okay, so
Yes,
this
Mr.
one,
Chair.
this one has also gone through different transformations. So let me make sure the correct one is there. Okay, well, I guess this is the final version of it.
Can you please read out your amendment, please?
Okay, so it's showing up there. Yes. So in this, trying to provide tools and flexibility, This is line 23, page 134. A new section 32 is added to chapter 12, miscellaneous provisions, to read. Section 32, Commissioner Fino Zamora authorizations. A new subsection 881050 is added to chapter 88, title 5, Guam Code annotated, to read as follows. Is hereby authorized to apply for and receive grants, charge fees for translation services, and publication of products, which would of course go through the AAA process, and to allow legislative consult to make any necessary corrections. So again, they just want to have every tool available to them. They basically, I believe, have not $1 for program support right now. So they just want to apply for every grant possible. And they get called on all the time by private entities, government entities, and individuals and groups to translate. And they do have publications. So to try to be more self-supporting, they're asking to be able to have the authority to develop a fee schedule that will go through the AAA process.
All right, does anybody like to speak to that amendment, please? I see no hand waved. That being said, closing, please, real short. Thank you.
I hope for your support. Assiduous Masi.
Thank you, Joe. Let's do the roll call. Let's move on this one, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment by Senator Kelly Marsh Taitsino, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rangel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rangel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munya Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pt.1.
Again, por favor.
Senator Pt.1, aye. Senator Marsh Taitsino.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitsino, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Again.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitagui.
Aye.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
Thank you, my colleagues. The amendment will be engrossed into the budget bill. Senator Kelly, that completes all your amendments. Thank you, Senator. We'll now move back to Senator Therese. You've got 3 amendments and they're generally simple. They're quite
Yes,
easy.
they are, Mr. Chair. And there's one more that I was contemplating, but if I could just ask OFB. So were the new health insurance contract rates incorporated in this budget? In other words, do the agencies have enough to meet their share of employers' health insurance? And especially the retiree section of the bill, does that have enough to meet what's going to be necessary for FY21?
Yes, yes, Senator Therese. The amount that's reflected in the bill is the amount that we received from Guam Retirement at the time we put the bill together. I'm not, it's my understanding that the contract has yet been consummated. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not too sure, but the amount that is reflected in the bill is what is the amount that we received from Paula Blas at the Guam Retirement Fund.
All right, but for the agencies, what is the anticipated increase in health insurance costs for this year that's been incorporated?
I would need to check to see what the difference is, Senator. I don't have that information right off, but I can get that for you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, do you know that?
No, my understanding, Steve, is that you made sure every warm body is funded, so that includes the benefits. Am I correct? I think that could answer that question.
If the question is the retirement costs for all the employees in Gov Guam currently on board is covered, the answer is yes, because we funded all the warm positions, all warm bodies.
Health insurance costs, we were told
If-
there may
if-
be an increase in
if
health
it's
insurance during FY21. And so, yeah, wanted to know if we've incorporated that in here. Remember when the retirees were getting cut off because there was not enough allocated for their health insurance? And I want to ensure that that's.
Yes, Senator, whatever was reflected in the staffing pattern of the agencies is the amount we use for health, life, and dental costs.
Okay.
And
In
for,
the
and for the retirees, Steve, it's based on what the retirement fund provided you, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope those are the up-to-date numbers, because yeah, we're expecting an increase, right? So we just want to make sure they're not going to get short, like it happens quite often. So, all right. Maybe we
Moving
could
along
get
to your amendments.
yes, clarification of that, Mr. Chair. Otherwise, our budget is short all over. Okay, so one of the first amendments for this page again is it's labeled SB 282 TMT page 134. This would be for line 23, well, to add a new section. And this one is at the request of GVB to increase the spending authority of the general manager. So this is already provided for in statute, section 9111 of Title 12. And so all we're doing is changing what's currently in statute at $1,000 limit to $24,999. This makes it in conformance with the authorization given by the board of directors of GVB. And it's also consistent with they have to pass a budget. So the general manager is never authorized to spend anything that's not already approved by budget. And they also want to remove any negative marks that they've been getting in their audits because of this provision. And so I think for everyone all around, they agree there's not much risk of impropriety because of all the checks and balances that are currently in place with the board, with the CFO, and that this is a common authority given to other agencies as well. So,
All right.
so it would be to amend, strike out $1,000 in the current statute to the other number, 24,999, and authorizing the bureau, the general manager, to sign purchase orders up to that amount.
Yeah, and obtain prior approval of the board, correct? That's the one emphasis.
Right. So the statute already requires that, pursuant to a current budget, which is approved by the board, and the board specifically approved this amount also. So that's their request.
All right, does any of my colleagues wish to speak on this? If I don't see a hand wave, we're gonna move to vote. All right, no hand. Do you want to
Chair,
close them?
I don't see an amendment.
Oh, you don't see the amendment? Ma'am?
Yeah, I don't think it's loaded up on the chat here.
Joe, can you make sure that's loaded, please?
Should be in the drive. It's been in the drive since this morning though. Or yesterday.
Joe, can you load that in the Zoom chat, please?
Could we, Senator Talai, can you kindly just read the page and the?
Yeah, it says SB 282 TMT, page 134, parentheses 4. No,
Right,
sorry,
thank you.
no, sorry, not the parentheses 4. It's, it just says 134, no parentheses.
Okay, thank you. Please bear with us. We got many 134s.
Yes, I understand.
And Joe, can you make sure that parentheses 2 and 3 is also uploaded after you're done the one about the parentheses of any number?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
2 and 3 are done already, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it's on the Zoom.
Next is 4. Yeah, please note 4. So these have been in the drive, I think, since yesterday.
Okay. Joe, you got it uploaded? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome.
Madam Vice, do you see it now, ma'am?
Yes, I'm opening it.
All right. All right, as it's floating out there, are there any questions? Madam Vice, did you have any questions on that one, ma'am?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, does anybody else have questions? I'm looking for hands waving, so no. Other than that, Senator Therese, if you can please close on that one and then we can go to vote, please.
No need to close. Please proceed.
All right, thank you, Joe. Let's do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment by Senator Teresa Lahi. On page 134, line 23, regarding contracts and purchases, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rigel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rigel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Ungan.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz Barnes.
Madam Speaker, are you still there? Madam Speaker? Why don't we go and skip her and then we'll come back to her at the end, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Th-
I apologize, sir. I was just,
No
are
problem.
we on a,
Yes, we're on the amendment. Please, if you would vote.
pass right now?
All right, thank you.
Speaker Munoz Barnes, pass. Senator Lee.
Ungan.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pt.1 Lahi.
Ungan.
Senator Pt.1 Lahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Ungan.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Ungan.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munoz.
Ungan.
Senator Munoz, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Ungan.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Ungan.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitagui.
Aye.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Speaker Munoz Barnes.
Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker? Speaker, if you could vote, please. Madam Speaker, your vote. Madam Speaker, can you hear us?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Joe?
Thank you. Speaker Munoz Barnes, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
Thank you, my colleagues. It will be engrossed in the budget bill. Senator Therese, your next amendment is parenthesis 4. Am I correct?
Yes, if they could please upload that one, Mr. Chair. And while we're waiting for that, okay, so I found the document that was uploaded to messages and communications transmitted to the speaker on August 20 from, I think, DOA regarding the health insurance contract. And it says that overall estimated FY 2021 annual premiums are $120.7 million, representing a potential estimated increase of 15.6 million from FY 20 estimated annual cost of 105.1 million, driven by claims experienced in FY 2020. And because of the late date that this was transmitted, looks like August 20th, that's why I'm asking whether these new estimates have been included in our budget for these agencies, because they're going to have to make the employer share of those premiums.
All right. Your amendment now, ma'am?
Do you know the answer to that, Mr. Chair, or OFB? Sorry.
No, but we can get to that after we complete all your amendments, so we can get that discussion going, but at least we'll get done with all your amendments, please.
Okay, yeah, so is it loaded now, the number 4? All right.
Joe?
Pardon? Yes?
I'm sorry, yes, it is. It was just loaded.
All right, thank you. So this amendment is to carry over the lapses from FY 20 for the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Same language we've been using in the others. This is, of course, to give them some additional flexibility.
All right, are there any discussion required by my colleagues? I see no hands up. Madam Vice Speaker, do you need to ask any questions? Because I know you're having technical difficulties coming in, at least you're on the phone. Hearing none. You need to close on this one, Senator Therese? I don't think so.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Joe, let's do the roll call and let's vote on this amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Therese Talahi on the carryover provision for public health, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rajel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munya Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Talahi.
Again.
Senator Therese Talahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi.
Again.
Senator Pito Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitunu.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitunu, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moreland.
Aye.
Senator Moreland, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Aye.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitugui.
Again.
Senator Taitugui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
All right, thank you. The amendment, my colleagues passed. It'll be engrossed into the budget bill. Senator Therese, you have 2 more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this one is labeled SB 282 TMT line 17, page 132. So this is that list of employees.
132 or one? We're still on 134, ma'am.
I know. Well, the list ends on page 134, so we were adding it to the bottom, but
okay.
I told them to change it because it should go in the beginning of the list, which is on page 132, item C. Those are the behavioral health and wellness, public health, GMH, and those. So this is just to include contact tracers and investigators under those who can be hired as unclassified, because we're expecting public health to, hire in and out for these purposes. So we don't want them to have to go through that unclassified hiring protocols and these positions will change depending on the demand. So So that's the amendment, just to add the words contact tracers and investigators to the list, in addition to nurses, doctors, licensed health professionals, and ancillary health employees necessary for clinical purposes at the Department of Public Health Social Services.
All right, thank you. Does anyone would like to discuss this? It's just to make sure we got all our people that are taking care of us out there. There being none, no hands movement. Centuries, do you believe you need a closing? If not, we're gonna go to vote.
No, thank you, my colleagues, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Joe, let's go to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, on the amendment. Proffered by Senator Therese Terlahi. Chairman San Augustine.
Aye.
Chairman San Augustine, aye. Vice Chair Rigel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rigel, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Pass.
Senator Lee, pass. Senator Therese Terlahi.
Ungan.
Senator Therese Terlahi, aye. Senator Pt.1.
Ungan.
Senator Pt.1, aye. Senator Marsh Taitsino.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitsino, aye. Senator Castro.
Ungan.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitugui.
Again.
Senator Taitugui, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
Thank you, my colleagues. The motion passes.
I didn't
Yes.
have an opportunity to vote on that last one.
Oh, I apologize. Senator, Joe, you forgot, she passed, remember? Senator Lee.
My apologies, my apologies.
Yeah, I believe you called on the speaker twice.
Yes, you're right. My apologies. Senator Lee.
Ungan. So just
Senator Lee, aye. Mr. Chair, my apologies. The amendment officially received 15 aye votes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, my colleagues, that this amendment passed. It'll be engrossed into the budget bill. Senator Therese, I think you're down to one, or is it two more still?
No, my next one's on page 136, so I'm done with page 134, except for that health insurance discussion, Mr. Chair, yeah.
Okay, we'll keep that short and simple on that one. Steve, if you can please comment to that one, then we're gonna move to the other amendments, because 136 is until we get to 136, okay? So, Steve, if maybe you can comment to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You know, Senator Therese, you know, as I mentioned earlier, in the development of these appropriations for the retirement health insurance for both the active and the retiree, you know, negotiations were going on at the time we were putting the budget together. I do believe that the meetings and sessions were completed. We weren't provided, or I wasn't able to get any adjusted numbers or any updated numbers other than what we had already, extracting it from the documents we had, which was mainly the staffing pattern. So to answer your question, if it included the most recent updated rates, I won't say the rates, but the updated amount, I would have said at this point, all we had was basically what was in that staffing pattern. So you're right, there could be a difference in the final number, but we were unable to actually get that figure to incorporate into the bill.
Okay, so it sounds like you incorporated the FY 2020 number, amounts for health insurance costs.
Yes.
Okay, so do you think that's a concern, the 15 million additional that they're estimating?
I mean, it may end up to be a concern towards the end, But as for now, like I said, the only information that was provided for us at the time we developed this was what was in those staffing patterns.
All right, well, I'm concerned about that, Mr. Chair. I don't want us to run short on the amounts we have to pay for the health insurance because we've seen that happen before.
Make her head straight.
But
Understood.
well, we might be 15 million here.
Madam Speaker, your mic is on. Thank you. Yes. Yes, Senator
Okay.
Teresa.
Maybe less than 15 million if we take out the autonomous agencies. So, but we should be looking at a way to resolve that, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
OP. Thank
All
you,
right.
Steve.
Thank you. Looking at the amendments, folks. Joe, who was next on the amendments that was submitted? I did see Senator Sabina say that she got amendment, but what's on the
That's
list, Joe?
Hers would be next, sir. Senator Sabina.
Oh, Senator Sabina, please. And can you upload it, please, on the Zoom, her amendment, so we can all see it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's actually one above Senator Terlahi's amendment, and I don't know if they got sent again. Let me just double check.
Yes, we just resent it.
Okay, all
Is
right.
that the one with the continuing appropriation authorization, ma'am?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So if I can read this amendment, it's on page
Please.
134. Thank you. To add a new section to chapter 12 to read, continuing appropriation authorization for the Department of Administration, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the unexpended balance of funds appropriated to the Department of Administration for fiscal year 2020 and prior shall not lapse and shall continue to be available until fully expended. The unexpended balance from prior appropriations shall be utilized to fund additional buyer positions for the General Services Agency that have been vacant for prior fiscal years. So if I can explain a little bit about GSA, GSA is really the procurement office for all the line agencies of Gulf Guam. If I can, actually about 46 agencies, in fact, and entities. Currently in their staffing pattern, they had 12 buyer positions. As of those 12 buyer positions, 5 of them are vacant, and three of them were not permanized as limited term employees. And so, you know, as everybody knows, procurement has been a source of frustration for a lot of agencies as far as, you know, getting the procurements done on time. A lot of that has to do with the needed resources, and that's the personnel themselves. And I would like to, you know, dedicate whatever funding may be available to hire more of these buyers. And, you know, yeah, I think that's really critical if we're going to have a more functioning government.
All right.
So that's why I'm offering this amendment.
All right. Does anyone like
the issues? Sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone would like to speak to this? I'm looking. I don't see any hands. Senator Kelly, please.
Seduce Masi, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, since this is pretty broad and there are a lot of entities within the Department of Administration, if I'm understanding it correctly, and correct me if I'm not, but so are we talking about the Department of, just the Department of Administration within the office administration? So we're just talking about the department, correct?
Okay, yeah, so General Service Agencies is a division within Department of Administration. And so in my, yeah, that's correct. It's one of the divisions, but a very important division and often overlooked. And, you know, as you can see, they deal with all 46 entities of the government of Guam, only 12 buyers, 5 vacancies, 3 limited terms. You know, that's one of the reasons why we're probably not getting procurement done on time. And we lose out on the opportunities. So I really want to shore up this particular division.
Okay, and so thanks for making sure I was on the right track. And have you had discussions with them? Did they have anything? I mean, I support the intent and I like that we're trying to problem solve here. But did they have anything pending that this might impede upon that you know of?
As far as Department of Administration themselves?
Yeah.
I haven't had recent discussions, to be honest, but I think that I did, the most recent discussion probably was back in May with GSA. So
Okay,
yeah,
and it didn't seem like there was anything large and pending that this might derail.
yeah, I can't confirm that at this time, but yeah, I just wanted to prioritize this very much, yeah, thinned out division of their administration, department administration.
Okay, well, that gives me information to think on. Situs Masi, Mr. Chair.
All right, does anyone who would like to speak to this? Because Senator Torres, please, and then Senator Lee.
Yeah, I just want to point out that right now we're barely going to be able to hold on to what we have. And if in fact DOA has priority needs, let them decide how they would do it. But to mandate a new position right now where we're just, barely even funding warm bodies, I think is not the right thing to do. And they didn't ask for it necessarily. So while it might be someone's priority, or we don't know that that's truly DOA's priority. So I would object to this.
All right, Senator Lee, ma'am, you have a question or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while I agree that, procurement is often kind of there's like a little speed bump that a lot of agencies are having to encounter every time they're trying to procure goods for their agencies. And then sometimes the linchpin is at GSA. And, obviously I think these buyer positions would be helpful for them. I agree with the retiring speaker that we need to have DOA come in and tell us what their needs are, what their dire needs are, because it's such a large agency that deals with all the other agencies of Guam. And yes, GSA is under that umbrella, but I would prefer to give the DOA director a little bit more flexibility so that he can determine if there is money, where it should go. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone else would like to speak to this? Looking for hands. Senator Therese.
Yes, I support the amendment. It's not allocating this year's appropriation, it's allocating lapses. So if there are any lapses from FY20, which DOA might not have got at all except for this amendment, then it's going to say, please, help GSA. It's another one of those places that is maybe high on the list of complaints from all the government agencies, but I feel like, this would help them to prioritize and help them to succeed and not simply fail because of lack of funding. So hopefully there are lapses, but I'm not even optimistic about that. But I would give this a try. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, does anybody else would like to speak? Looking for hands. I see no hands. Simple comment on my part, because I'll be last to speak. I did meet with GSA folks, and they did ask for help, and I've asked them to please communicate that with the director so they can allocate and find ways to find funding to hire their folks. So I do understand where Senator Sabina's amendment may be able to assist them, but I also fall in line with previous speakers that said I don't want to tell a director how they fund their branches and their office. Okay, so I'm just kind of reserved on that right now. But I do want to help GSA. There's no doubt about that. Even their building has got leaks and everything. They got some issues down there, and I think DOA needs to look at their priorities, because I don't want to pick between I need an accountant to process payroll and pay bills and whatever versus getting somebody to purchase something. And so far with personnel, DOA is a big office. So that being done, Joe, if you can go ahead and do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Perez, Chairman Augustine.
Pass.
Mr. Chair.
You wanted to close? I apologize. Did you want to close, Senator Sabina? Turn on your mic, please. You're muted right now.
Yeah, so
I apologize. If you want to close.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank my colleagues in advance for their support for this amendment. As everyone knows, procurement issues have been harming our government of Guam. It's been a source of issues. And, and looking in my study of procurement, I find that, really they lack the resources, and one of them is the personnel. And, with only 7 buyers for the whole government of Guam, that's 46 agencies. That's critical. That's a critical level of employees that can handle the procurement. And, this is something that's very needed at this time, especially with the CARES Act. We just heard with the Attorney General's office, they need to spend, huge sums of money in such a short amount of time. I think now's the time to really prioritize the money at this very critical point with a very critical agency that often gets criticized. And they're doing all they can right now with the 7 personnel that they have to process all the purchase orders, process all the contracting, processing, RFPs. This is something that we need to prioritize and, respect and I think, give them the resources so that our government can function. Every time, we come to the legislature, there's always issues about procurement. Why isn't this procurement getting done? It's all GSA's fault, right? What's wrong with GSA? And if we look at GSA, we see there's only 7 buyers. And now, that's part of the issue. Part of the issue is the lack of personnel. And I think, especially at this critical time when we need to get the funds procured and spent, let's give them the resources. So I ask for my colleagues' support in this. Thank you.
All right. Joe, if you can go and do the roll call, my vote still stands pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman St. Augustine, pass. Vice Chair Rigel.
Nay.
Vice Chair Rigel, nay. Vice Chair Shelton.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shelton, nay. Speaker William Barnes.
Pass.
Speaker William Barnes, pass. Senator Lee.
Aye.
Senator Lee, nay. Senator Theresa Lahi.
Ungan.
Senator Theresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pito Talahi.
Ungan.
Senator Pito Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Pass.
Senator Marsh Taitano, pass. Senator Castro.
Ungan.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Ungan.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Nay.
Senator Torres, nay. Senator Taitugui.
Ungan.
Senator Taitugui, aye. Chairman St. Augustine.
Pass. One more pass.
Chairman St. Augustine, pass. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Pass.
Speaker Munya Barnes, pass. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Aye.
Senator Marsh Taitano, nay. Chairman St. Augustine.
With reservations, nay.
Chairman St. Augustine, nay. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munya Barnes, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 9 ayes and 6, I'm sorry, 9 ayes and 6 nays.
All right, thank you, my colleagues. The motion passes. It'll be engrossed in the bill, the budget bill. Who's next, Joe, on the amendments? So we can move along, please. Joe?
Thank you, sir. We have no other amendments for 134.
All right, my colleagues, we're moving along. We're on page 135. Chapter 13, administrative provisions. On page 135, we don't have any hands up there. We are now on page 136, my colleagues. 136. There's no amendment on 136. Senator Therese, do you have an amendment for page 136, ma'am?
Yes, I do. So in the drive, it's labeled as SB 282 TMT line 1, page 136. And this is very simple. So this section of the bill talks about government funded travel is prohibited. And then it makes a long list of exceptions. So one of the exceptions is to travel, subsection I, to travel to attend conferences and official meetings with national and regional government officials or national and regional organizations of which the entity is an official member. And my amendment is to add to that subsection the words, where attendance is necessary to advancing Guam's interests during fiscal year 2021 and as approved by governing board or director.
Oh, good. Thank you. Does anyone like to speak to that? That sounds great.
It's just to narrow it down a little bit because, yeah, we are very tight on our budget this year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I don't see any hands to speak to it. Senator Kelly, you want to speak to that? And yes.
Well, I just have a
and then you'll be followed by Senator Pito.
Okay, I just have a question. So just for my understanding, and I agree, I mean, we're looking for ways to be responsible here. So if there is no board or governing body, is it implied that it's only as is applicable?
It has to be.
That's how I read it, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. So,
yeah, you got to have a governing board or a director. If you don't have either one, then you're on your own traveling. You just account for it. All right, Senator Pito, do you have any comments you want? Because there's no restriction other than unless you've got a board.
Joe, Mr. Chair, I talked to you regarding this one at the request of the mayors, and all that they wanted to do, they're not gonna spend any per diem money or any travel money, but they just wanted to take that ban for traveling out of the bill. That's all that they want. They're not gonna use any government funds.
Oh, I don't know if there's any ban here in the budget bill for them to travel. I mean, they want to travel, they're on their own. Just don't use government money. I mean, don't use.
They just want to take the word ban out.
I think that's in the mayor's section of the bill, Mr. Chair.
The mayor's section of the bill, I think it was specifically to certain funding that they can't use it for travel. As long as they understand that if there's a special section, a special funds,
Didn't say ban.
they should be able to work with that.
All that they want is if the word ban, travel ban is on there, they just want it out. They're not asking for any funds.
It's not on there.
Okay, I'll have somebody look it up, but if you know the chapter we're at, Senator Lee, please.
It didn't say ban.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if we could just do that on the side and we can get back to Senator Pito with his thing. So, I just want to make sure we're focusing on Senator Terlahi's amendment. Thank you.
Yes. Does anybody like to speak on Senator Terlahi's amendment? I don't see any hands. Joe, let's call the roll. Senator Reese, do you need a closing? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Joe, let's go to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Therese Terlahi on travel, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rajal.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajal, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munya Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Ungen, por favor.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Terlahi.
Again.
Senator Therese Terlahi, aye. Senator Pito Terlahi.
Okay.
Senator Pito Terlahi, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitunu, aye. Senator Castro.
Ungen.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moreland.
Aye.
Senator Moreland, aye. Senator Munya.
Ungen.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Ungen.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitigui.
Ungen.
Senator Taitigui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
Thank you. That amendment passes and it'll be engrossed in the bill. Senators, I'm looking on 136. Do you have anything else? If not,
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
all right. And on page 136, is there anything else by our colleagues here? Nothing. We are now at page 137. Folks, page 137. I see no hands. We are now moving to 138. There shouldn't be anything. You have something for 138, ma'am? Senator Sabina. Yeah, unmute, please, so we can hear you. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's on the Zoom chat. It's one above Senator Terlahi's. It's labeled SB 282 SFP P138. So if I can just read it for now.
Yes, please read it.
Okay, so to add a new section to Chapter 13, Part to read, pursuant to Section 5010 of Chapter 5, Title 5, Guam Code annotated, agencies shall submit to the General Service Agency a projected annual procurement plan at the start of each fiscal year. Plan shall include equipment, services, supplies, example vehicles, copiers, computers, heavy equipment, security, ground maintenance, janitorial, and construction supplies, food supplies, etc., by category, together with appropriate specifications or scope of work. Okay, so this language actually comes from one of the circulars that GSA puts out. And so this section in the law is about planned procurement. In my discussions with GSA, I asked them, what are some ways we can improve procurement? And one of the proposals or recommendations was to have agencies submit any planned procurement at the beginning of the fiscal year, considering that now they know how much money they have appropriated to them, to get the procurement started in the beginning of the year rather than as it arises. So that's one thing, is to help GSA. It would help GSA facilitate procurement so that these agencies can obtain the resources that they need in a timely manner and at the best cost possible. The other thing that this does, it can help GSA consolidate orders. And this is something that I would like to see with Government of Guam, is that they can combine orders to conserve money with shipping costs. So if you imagine if one purchase order comes in from one agency for paper on one day, and then the next week another purchase order for the same item comes in the next day, now we've increased the cost unnecessarily to government due to the shipping costs alone. So it really, it helps everybody all around. It helps save money. It helps to reduce the unnecessary cost in government. It also helps to get the materials and supplies and contracts done on a timely manner without having to go to emergency procurement, which is what it's not intended for, and to get the best cost for the goods that the government seeks and needs. So it's really just one of the best practices, and it is part of the law as well. And I think putting it up front and explicit in the budget bill, I think it's a good tandem to with the appropriations. So yeah, that's the rationale behind this amendment, is to facilitate procurement and get the best pricing for government. And this is one of the low-hanging fruits. So at a time when money is very scarce, it's tight, we have to maximize our dollar, and this is one of the low-hanging fruit in which we can achieve this. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Senator Lee, I saw your hand wave. You wanted to speak on this amendment, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the proffer of this amendment. I agree that if we're able to enforce this, that we'll be able to help streamline and potentially have savings down the line. But Mr. Chair, I just have a quick question for the proffer of the amendment, if she'll yield. She mentioned that this was listed in GSA's circular, so I just wanted to know if this was discussed or contemplated in their rules and regs, if this had a public hearing, if this was ever discussed in a public hearing, and what happens to agencies should they not comply. What happens to agencies should they not comply? And it also says at the start of each fiscal year. So, I mean, within 30 days, I don't know. There's just a lot of wiggle room here. But I appreciate this amendment. I think it's a good idea. And hopefully if, if it's enforced, then it'll move forward. But it's just kind of very flexible, the language. So I'm just trying to figure out. Yeah, anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, there's not a problem there. Anybody else would like to speak to that? Senator Sabina, you wanted to answer that?
Yes, yeah, that was a point of inquiry, I believe. So yeah, I just wanted to share with the public what this section is about. So it doesn't add to the law, it's actually just reinforcing the law. And it's just best practices and just ensuring that the agencies are aware of this to kind of like consolidate their orders. It doesn't require any public hearing because it's already part of the law. So if I could just read the section of the law, and it's not, there's no, there's no consequences other than them not doing it. That's why perhaps why it wasn't done. There wasn't any kind of enforcement attached to this particular part of the law. It's more a policy. It was a policy in favor of planned procurement. So by just kind of reinforcing the law that's already in place, making our agencies aware that this exists and that maybe at this time it's probably prudent to follow what the policy states in the procurement law. So that right now there's no enforcement, no consequences currently in the law. It's just basically a policy in favor of planned procurement. But again, it's all about incentives. We're incentivizing. I believe it's more about incentives for our government to follow through with the laws that are in place to get the best maximum use of the dollars that we're appropriating, very, very precious dollars at this time. So I hope that answers the question.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else like to speak to this? None. Senator Therese.
Just very briefly, I just want to say, yes, I support this amendment. If this is done, it will save money, period. And we will not have that mad rush of purchase orders that they want to get through at the end of the fiscal year. And GSA becomes overwhelmed and because they're trying to spend their money at the last minute. And every advantage that we can give to GSA to get better value for our money, I support that. Thank you to the sponsor of this amendment.
All right, thank you. No one else to speak. I understand where Senator Sabina is coming from. We do that in the military. Proper planning prevents poor piss execution of plans. All right, so why don't we go and just move on and let's vote on this. Joe, let's call the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Sabina Perez, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rajal.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajal, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Muñoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Muñoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Talahi.
Again.
Senator Therese Talahi, aye. Senator Pt.1.
Again.
Senator Pt.1, aye. Senator Marsh Titan.
Again.
Senator Marsh Titan, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Muñoz.
Again.
Senator Muñoz, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitigui.
Again.
Senator Taitigui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
Thank you, Mr. Meskian. We are now on page 138. Anyone else with an amendment for page 138? If not, we'll go to the next page.
Senator Paris, is that second one?
I
There's-
withdrew that one because, yeah, I withdrew the other amendment because it's similar enough. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else for anything on page 138? Nope. Okay, page 139. Page 139. Page 140. Page 140. Anyone with any amendments for page 140? Nope. Okay. Page 141. Anything on page 141? Senator Terlahi?
Yes, and if I could get the assistance of OFB. So on page 141, section 7, it's fund reversions. And so it says, unless otherwise specified in this act, and then it says these funds shall revert on the last day of fiscal year 2021. So for example, the tourist attraction fund, if all unexpended or unencumbered appropriations made from the tourist attraction fund by a GG1 purchase order or contract pursuant to this act shall revert to the tourist attraction fund on the last day of fiscal year 2021. But because we included in this budget, what says unexpended or unencumbered appropriations, but we, they're counting on any excess revenues above. Remember that provision in the for GVB where they're going to get 80% of any tourist attraction fund revenues above the current estimates in this budget bill. So I'm thinking we should remove that for the tourist attraction fund so that it does not revert and that they're able to continue to expend it.
You're correct, Senator. If that's the wish of the body, you can do that. Right now, yeah, the only thing that is required of the appropriations as set forth in the law is any revenues that come in up to that level, which have already been appropriated and allocated. The only thing that's required of that appropriation that it covers those expenditures and encumbrances by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, okay, and so for example, GVB, they have a set appropriation and we know how that will work. But for that appropriation that says they're going to receive 80% of any excess TAF, or not excess, but any TAF revenues above the estimated level in this bill, they're going to get that. If we remove subsection B, does that allow them to continue? It allows them to continue to use that. Isn't that correct? Beyond the last day of fiscal year 2021.
Let me read the provisions real quick, Senator.
Okay, and for my colleagues, the amendment is labeled SB 282 TMT line 14, page 141, and it's really to delete subsection B. I'm trying to confirm that this is what I think it is.
Senator Talai, let me see if I can answer your question. I think in the case of like GVB and stuff like that, is anything above the projected revenues, that was where we were, that's where that 80-20 allocation would come in. But as far as anything within the appropriation level, any excess, I mean, not any, I would say any lapses or unencumbered monies, that would be the one that will carry over.
Okay, because the language is that it says 80% of all TAF revenue for fiscal year 2021 exceeding the amount estimated in section 2 shall be appropriated. So the 80% is appropriated, but they might not be able to expend or encumber it by the end of September 2021 because of the way they're calculating it, right? They might not even be able to calculate that until after September 30.
And that's correct. And I guess that's where the that's where the problem lies, is that we won't know exactly what the balance is until the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so do you see any harm in removing subsection B? That's my amendment. Or do you think that's consistent with your intention when you appropriated 80% of the TAF revenues for FY21?
Well, right now, Senator, the way I look at it, it doesn't conflict with what we did earlier with the 80-20. By removing this,
unless they have carryover provision, where is it going to go if it doesn't revert back to tourist attraction fund?
so I'm thinking that, you know, unless they have the carryover provision that allows them to utilize those funds, everything else would go back, I would assume would go back to the TAF. So,
right. But I don't want that to happen. We want it to stay with the agencies that we've where we've appropriated that money for them. For example, Parks and Rec, they're getting, you know, they're relying on tourist attraction money. We might not be able to account for it until, or expend it. They're not going to be allowed to expend it, I'm pretty sure, until it's late. So, all right, so maybe I'm just going to go for it then with my amendment. It's going to be, I'm going to take a chance here. I think to remove subsection B, and the intent is that all of those, so that their appropriations will stay with them and it will not revert.
the only thing, Senator, I just want to comment on that is just to ensure that the provision to allow them to utilize those funds is also provided to them. Otherwise, right, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't have no effect.
Okay, so it's only for those where we've appropriated the money. And so we have appropriated the money. It's not for anything above what we've appropriated, right?
No, even if you're referring to, because you got to remember, even the unexpended, right? Mm-hmm. You got to make sure that the provision of, I mean, there's a provision there that allows them to use that portion too.
Right, that's what I'm trying to do by deleting subsection B. So instead of reverting the unexpended, they continue to be authorized to expend it.
Okay, I understand the intent. I think what we're doing is sufficient to cover it. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's my amendment.
Can I have a question? Ask a question. So as I'm reading it, and it's an area I'm not very familiar with. So, but when we're talking about the tourist attraction fund, so would that be everywhere it is, since it's spread out amongst a lot of entities? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page as what you were thinking.
Anyone else on the amendment? Anyone else on the amendment? Senator Pt.1. Senator Pito, you're recognized. Senator Pito, did you have something? I thought I saw you raise your hand. Where did he go?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I believe we may have lost
Okay.
Senator Pito in the connection.
Okay. I did have something I wanted to make sure that I understand this amendment. So I think Senator Terlahi is just trying to make sure that I understand what she's trying to, I think I do. It's just to make sure that lapses, this is basically for lapses for FY21, which is this current year. So it's just trying to make sure that these lapses stay with wherever the agency was at. But not sure we can, I guess my question is for OFB. Don't we generally do like carryover appropriations in the following year's budget where then we would allow those lapses to be available? So I think that's why the mechanism here is it goes back to the TAF, and then the following budget cycle, that's when the legislature can say the lapses from those agencies, from the TAF, carry over. They continue, the appropriation continues. Steve, you're on mute.
Yes, Senator, both provisions, method of provisions have been done either in the current budget year or the following budget year. So in other words, if you wanted to carry over FY 2020 appropriations, you would do it in 2021. That's normally how it's done, because by then you'll kind of know what the amount is, how much balance is available. Therefore, you go ahead and put the provision, assuming there is money to be utilized. If you do it this year, saying that you want to carry over 2020, again, you're just giving the authorization. We don't know exactly what amount we're talking about. So it's just kind of like just securing whatever monies become available or are available at the end of the fiscal year. So you are right.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is, so in this budget bill that we have right now, we don't have anything in it that continues the appropriation of lapses for FY21 currently. In this budget, do we have did we pass any amendment or any provision that says that the 21, any lapses in 21 will continue?
That's exactly what we're trying to do here. Yes.
I would need to verify that, Mr. Chairman, please. Give me a moment to verify. There've been quite a few amendments right now, so I need to verify that. Anything that are carryovers 2021, I think.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, can we do a carryover appropriation in the same fiscal year? Like in the same budget for that year, say any lapses, just stay in it till next year. Because that's kind of like we're appropriating for next year's budget. That, you see what I'm trying to say? It's
I think before Steve answers that, I think we need to understand how that portion on 141 is written. At the end of FY21, not this year, but next year, everything reverts back to TAF. That's all it's doing, is making sure it reverts back and is put as whole. Then it'll be budgeted out again in the next budget. So to take it out, I couldn't support that. I would have to live with that revision, because a reversion is because it just brings it back. And then we're gonna do what we're doing today. All on and expended, be carry over. We can do that during the budget. But by September 21, 2021 is when it happens. We will discuss the budget before that period, so it won't impact anybody. All right, so I don't see a need to get rid of it, so I would object to that. But anyway, we can move along if anybody else needs to speak on that one.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to say. I was trying to get across that I'm not sure if we're able to do this, because it's like we're appropriating for the following fiscal year, because a lapse is something that's not spent in that fiscal year. So can you appropriate something that's not spent in that fiscal year to the following fiscal year? Because that's in effect what this would do. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes,
That's correct.
So then that's the question is, can we appropriate for, a fiscal year that's not here yet? That's my concern. It might be inappropriate.
yes, Senator Rigel, if you're talking about appropriating 2021 revenues for the next fiscal year, like in 2022, I don't think the provision is doing that. All it's saying is that whatever available balances are left of the 2021 appropriation will be available in 2022. That is my interpretation of all these carryover provisions. Just like right now, we are talking about carrying over 2020 appropriations into 21.
But
We are
this
not,
would,
yeah,
this
we're
one
not,
would carry over 21 into 22.
yeah, you're just, yeah,
Carry
just
over 21
authorized. Yeah, that's correct. You're just authorizing what's already appropriated to continue into 2022. You're not appropriating it.
Correct. I'm just asking, are we allowed to carry over appropriations to a future fiscal year? That's basically what the question is. Is that something that we're allowed to do?
I believe we're doing it right now as we take 2020 and appropriating it into 21. So it's been a practice. It's nothing new. I would say I haven't seen anything that would think that it's otherwise, that you couldn't do it, but it's been a practice in the past.
Okay.
So I would think it's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Senator
Thank you.
Therese, you waved your hand, ma'am. Do you have something to say? Is anybody else going to need to speak, Senator Clint?
At the time, no one else had anything else to say, so I was the last one talking.
All right, Senator Therese, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and so just if you look at Section 7, this is something we are physically putting in this bill. We're saying if it's not expended or encumbered, it will revert. If we didn't put this whole section in this bill, then that's exactly, then it would not revert. Then the logic says that they would be able to continue to expend it, that those appropriations wouldn't end. So what I'm trying to say is, in particular for the Tourist Attraction Fund, because of the language that's also in this bill under GVB that says we're going to appropriate revenue exceeding the amount estimated in this act is appropriated to GVB. We know that the determination of all of that is not going to be made. It might be made throughout the year, but it won't. But some of it will have to be made after September. And so we want GVB, if we're being, straightforward with what we're trying to give them in the earlier section of the bill, then we need to allow that to just take its course, its full course, so that after September, whatever comes in September, that's over and above, that they also are able to expend that. Because if they try to do a purchase order, in September, it's not going to work. So that's what we're trying to do. Just make it consistent, that if we're telling them to rely on exceeding estimates and appropriating that to them. So this helps that to work. So they go together, and otherwise it reverts, and they're not going to get anywhere near what this bill seems to promise them. So that's my intention here, and especially for that one fund, because some of these smaller agencies are relying on TAF excess revenues, right? Over and above the 400,000 visitors. And so I'm trying to do this to make sure that they can get some of that money for real.
Yeah.
All right, I guess that was your closing. Steve, you wanted to comment to that? That's your closing.
Yeah, just to maybe just add some information is that, just bear in mind that when we make appropriations, the appropriation is good for a 12-month period, normally the fiscal year. So we're appropriating money for the agencies to operate for a 12-month period. And we're assuming that at the end of the 12 months, if they have not exhausted what is being appropriated, it's normally the thought that these monies will revert back to the fund source it was appropriated from, unless specific provisions were provided in the budget bill that allows them to use it beyond the 12-month period, normally at the end of the fiscal year. So that's normally the logic that we do when we do the appropriations, that it's good for 12 months. If you don't spend it in 12 months, it reverts back to the fund source the appropriation came for, and then it goes from there. And that's what this reversion clause does. It just reverts all the unexpended, unused monies back to the fund source that it came from.
All right. Did you have a closing sentence so we can wrap this up and move along, please?
Mr. Chair, that this is something that GVB discussed with us. It's the only way for the appropriation you gave them in Section 4 under the GVB section to work. Otherwise, they really they may not get anything that we're seeming to promise them from this 80%. So in order for them to get that, these two have to go together. Otherwise, they contradict each other.
No, but was that your closing?
Yes, and of course, their budget is 6 million at this point. So we're trying to give them that other funding, the excess funding. If we take this provision out, they get a better chance of getting that 80% from FY21 only. So there's no harm to FY22. It doesn't impact FY22 at all. It would be consistent with what our goal was under the GVB section and allow them money for their operations and for marketing and all their other purposes. So that's why we're making this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Joe, let's take the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Teresa Lahi for page 141, lines 14 through 17, Chairman San Agustin.
Reservations, no.
Chairman San Agustin, nay. Vice Chair Rigel.
Nay.
Vice Chair Rigel, nay. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Nay.
Senator Lee, nay. Senator Teresa Lahi.
Again.
Senator Teresa Lahi, aye. Senator Pt.1.
Again.
Senator Pt.1, aye. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moreland.
Aye.
Senator Moreland, aye. Senator Muña.
Again.
Senator Muña, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Nay.
Senator Torres, nay. Senator Taitagui.
Again.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 11 ayes and 4 nays.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The motion passes. Moving along, on page 141. I'm looking at any other amendments and I don't see anything. We're 141. We're on page 142 now, folks. My colleagues, Mr. Moylan, Senator Moylan, I think you're on the.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yes. The amendment reads for page 142, line 5. Basically, it's just the percentage. Instead of 30%, we're changing it to 15, back to 15%. Just going to save some time instead of reading the whole thing. I just changed the percentage from 30 to 15 and a quick explanation. What we're doing is reducing the governor's transfer authority. Okay, so this bill provides an unprecedented 30% transfer authority for the governor of Guam. It really does. That's what we're doing. And the legislature body has spent a good part of this last 2.5 weeks, including this weekend, trying to find ways to assure that our key agencies get the needed funds to accomplish their mission. And yet, just like that, we're going to tell the governor that she has more authority than any previous governor just to pick away where she wants, and hence these efforts of our colleagues in finding ways to get money for certain entities would have been gone in just in a stroke of the pen. And this I can't support. I don't agree with increasing the transfer authority, and just allowing it to remain at 15% is best. Now, if there is an emergency, of course, if that occurs or the governor needs to transfer additional funds, then bring it back to the legislature. But I'm just not comfortable transferring more money from the agencies that we work so hard to fight for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'm looking for if there's any one that would like to speak to that. Looking for any hands, please. Nobody? No. Senator Tello, please. And then Senator Kelly, did you wave your hand, ma'am? Okay, and then you follow Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if this goes to Steve or if this goes to you, Mr. Chair, but in the past, 2020, it was 15%. I think, trying to remember what year it was even down to 10% on the transfer authority. I do understand that we're in difficult times right now, and even more so when we even tried to get the information on CARES Act funding. What was utilized for that CARES Act? We're still not sure. We're only told that only 25% of that CARES Act funding was spent. Where's the remaining? Certain questions like that, it's hard for us to determine where the funding is going to go to when we're not getting a lot of information. The responsibility of the legislature is to hold purse strings. I mean, don't get me wrong. If the governor needs something and has a plan that's solid and agreed upon at least 8 of us, then it moves forward. We have to provide that assistance. We need to work hand in hand. The administration, the legislature, and judicial all work hand in hand. But sometimes that doesn't happen. So we need to find certain situations that kind of hold that purse string. So my question is, why 30%? Why the huge jump from 15 to 30? What's the logic behind that? So I guess Steve Mr. Chair is on the phone right now, but Steve, can you answer that question?
Yes, Senator. I think in the development of the budget, we already knew that it was going to be a really, really difficult fiscal year to even fathom, first of all, the revenues, second of all, the reduction of the revenues and the impact it would have on general operations. And seeming that we reduce the overall revenues of the government of Guam by $66 million. That in itself was something that we needed to take into consideration to figure out how to keep this government afloat with such a massive reduction in revenues. So in working with the administration, they requested even a higher amount. And I told them, I said, you know what, I'm willing to budge on the 15% to give more flexibility to the governor, simply because, despite the revenues that we're presenting here today, we still don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now. Things can get better, and I hope they do, but it can also get worse, terribly worse. And instead of coming back every single 30 days, 60 days, 1 quarter to ask, for assistance from the legislature, we put in these provisions as an avenue for the administration, for the government to work within the realms that we're providing her. If it gets worse, we might have to come back and give her 50%. We don't know. So 30% I thought was a reasonable number based on what we know today, and based on what we don't know today. And that's how that 30% was basically thought up on our part. It was not the administration's request. It's what we recommended out of OAB, because the administration request was very, very high.
Thank you, Steve, for that. Thank you so much. And, for being honest, but, it just behooves me to think that we're sitting here negotiating with the administration on how much transfer authority. They give you a high number just so they can get another number. I don't think that's right. It's our responsibility. We have to have accountability. We provide that accountability. So my next, and I'm sure my colleagues like to speak on this too as well, so I'll try and be short. I've been trying to be short all day, not speaking, when needed, but this does touch a nerve. So Steve, of the 30% transfer authority, how much is that?
It's difficult right now, Senator. I need to go back because when we first started the budget, we calculated based on the allocation, but now there's been changes. There's some funds that are restrictive. There's some funds that you don't include. Some funds that are excluded from the calculation of utilizing that 30% transfer. So if you can give me a little time, I can kind of figure what we have to date, what all the amendments that were made in the bill. I can come up with at least an estimate of how much that money, that amount will be based on the 30%.
I agree. Yeah, I think a lot of us would like to know what that amount would be. And if anything, your best guesstimate compared to last year at 15%, that might be helpful too, to do a comparison. So in FY 2020, this year, when the budget bill has been passed and we figure out the numbers and the allocations, can you do a comparative? What happened in this year versus now what's going to happen in 2021? So thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to reserve until it comes back with the answer and allow my colleagues to speak. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else would like to speak? Senator Kelly, yes.
Sedus Masi, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I have to admit that this one made me pause and really spend a lot of time contemplating it. I too didn't understand where 30% came from, other than it looks like it's doubling the flexibility. And so I was wondering about the logic behind it. And I reached out to some people with financial backgrounds to get their assessment. Should we keep it at 15%? Like, are we raising it by too much? I suggested, what about 20%? What about 25%? And at least for the ones I talked to, because next year is so unknown, they said anyways, their advice was to me, they really only felt more comfortable with the 30%. And, in continuing to think about this, we just don't know. We don't know what kind of failures the general fund revenues might have, or TAF. We saw it almost stop on a dime. And so with that affects all of our agencies across the board, whether they can meet their salary that time, or their, maybe their local, their federal matching fund commitments, or, just being worried about that. And I did like the reasoning of the retiring speaker, that I really want the legislature and the executive branch to be working together. We do have our separate roles. And, the other thing that came to my mind in that is, unfortunately, with the way that the Organic Act is written right now, we're finding we're a little hamstrung to come in a guaranteed way when we need to. And so, I worry a little bit about that as well. I hope we figure out a way to resolve that, because Congress has to fix this for themselves, and they need to fix it for us too. That it's a different landscape, and we can't drop everything in a moment's notice and go to the legislature necessarily. And some of us may be in quarantine, and then we're just totally left out of the voting process. So yeah, I absolutely get the points that were brought up. I tried to think through as many of them as possible. And so I'm still thinking this through, and I look forward to hearing if there are any other points being made up by the others to help me continue to deliberate on this. Sedus Masi, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? I'm looking for if there's any hands out there. We have to move along, folks. Senator Therese, please.
Yes, I'm kind of interested to hear the numbers also from OFB as to what would constitute 30%, what would constitute 15%. And I wouldn't normally agree to the 30% transfer authority, and I would support this amendment. However, I want to know if either of those scenarios gives the governor enough transfer authority to cover the shortfall at public health. And because we calculate that, we started with 13 and then there was $1 million added. So maybe about 12 million in operations. And that's what we're counting on now. And even, so if there's any shortfall, we have no other funding source, it's going to really rely on transfers. And so I'm gonna pick 15 or 30, whichever's gonna be able to cover that shortfall at public health, because we're gonna have to rely on her to cover that shortfall at public health. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And if folks, if you just want to do the simple math, 10% of 775 is 7 million, 70 million, whatever that number is, may not come in and be able to help public health. So if you allow her the increase, you allow the flexibility, then she can take a look across the board in the whole budget in her executive area, because she can't transfer from anybody else. It's all within whatever she has control over. So I just wanted to make sure that we're doing the math while we're waiting for Steve to do the calculation. Because Steve, we're waiting for your calculation so you can give a rough number, rough estimate of what that amount may be, so we can end this discussion and go to vote. Senator Lee, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could just clarify, you said 775, but I don't think that you take it from general fund available. I think you take it from general fund available, which is 649 million, if I'm correct. So it's not a percentage of 775, it's a percentage of 649. So that's even less.
Yes, and it keeps getting less as we put all the restriction. All right, and that's what Steve's trying to come up with, what the restriction may be. It may be very little, to the extent where nobody's really going to get any help. And if they're going to keep coming back to us, I don't know when we can allow that flexibility. Steve, are you almost ready with those numbers? Approximate number, just so we can end the discussion with this one and we can move on.
Okay, first of all, just to highlight, Senator Lee is correct. It's not the total general fund that you pay the 30% on, because you need to take out what you cannot include in calculating the 30%, especially if it's specific by law. What we got for 2020, based on what we feel is the amounts that can be tapped, is about 45 million. Based on the 15%. And then for 2021, I'm still working on this number, Senator. Just give me a moment here. I want to, because like I said, I want to get you a ballpark. I don't want to get you something that's out of the ballpark here.
And Steve, still on that same note, 2020 budget is higher than 2021 we're promoting or we're reviewing, okay? So that pretty much gives you something you can guide yourself with. Does anybody else want to speak before Steve comes on, so that we're not going to continue on beyond after Steve gives a report back? We're going to go to the vote, I hope.
If he could just also let us know that number. It sounds like he's using a number way below 649, and even below what I used was 185 based on general fund for executive branch agencies only. Yeah, so yeah.
It keeps getting less.
Just remember, folks, in the law, in the budget bill, there are provisions that are exempted from the governor's transfer. So you need to go back and take out all those exemptions. Not everything in the general fund is going to be available for transfer. So that's the part we're trying to do now, and we got to go through every provision to make sure that we capture it. So it's not just taking 775, it's not taking 649, it's not taking the one, whatever. We need to go to each one and figure out what is a subject and what is not. And that's what's taking a little time. We have an estimate, but you know, I want to make sure, because I want to give you something at least that's close.
My colleagues, I prefer we just move along. The numbers are not getting any bigger, okay?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, this is a very important information.
Yes, it's very important, Senator Tello, but the number's not getting any lower. Senator Lee, you have anything you want to say, ma'am?
Getting lower.
Just a point of inquiry to the proffer of this amendment. I know that OFB is going through the numbers and trying to look at all the different places in the budget bill where the governor's transfer authority does not exist. So maybe the proffer of this amendment already, because he's the one that is contemplating this, maybe he already did the math and he could answer this question for us.
Isn't OFB ready? I mean,
Senator Jim, do you have a number that you contemplating, that you anticipated that the governor will be using 30%, or is that just an amendment that you thought sounded good?
More than good, Mr. Chairman. But the number, I guess, just like Steve, will constantly change based on what we've been doing for the past two and a half weeks. So if we already know, we're all assuming that it won't even reach the amount we need. So why in the heck are we doing this? We have something called the CRER, which I tried to address before. And if we would have reduced that percentage from 3 to 2, we would have came up and looked at this a lot sooner than trying to give the governor basically double her transfer authority, because now we're going to think it's too late and she has to jump in and do something. But what makes us really think is that where she's going to put the money. You know, we gave GMH $10 million, and that never happened. And we had a overage of $31 million. Where did that go? So now we want to tell the governor, hey, just double your transfer authority. And we already heard from Steve that they wanted even more transfer authority. So why even do a budget? Just give her all the money and she can put it where she wants. But this gives us the checks and balances. And Mr. Chair, let's save our time. We can go back and forth. I think we already made our decision. We're already on page 142. We need to be done. Let's move forward, and I call for the vote, please.
All right. No, Senator Kelly, you already spoke. Senator Lee.
Yeah, I just had a
you
point
still
of
have the floor.
information.
Senator Kelly, hold on. Senator Lee, you still have the floor.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to thank the proffer of this amendment for kind of answering the question. So this is just blindly reducing. There's no rhyme or reason behind the 15% reduction. Just basically, it's a feeling that it may be too much. Even though, you know, we have the oversight chair of health telling us that we want to be very cautious with this to make sure that public health in the middle of this pandemic has the resources that they need to be able to meet its mandates and keep our community safe. And we already know that they are close to 12 million in the hole. So we want to make sure that however you feel about this governor, that, you know, we give our agencies the opportunity to meet their mission mandates and to be able to have the resources to protect our community. And that is the bottom line, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Steve, do you have the numbers? If you don't have the numbers, the author of the amendment as requested to move for the vote.
I'm not quite ready with the numbers, sir, and I don't want to give a number that I don't feel comfortable with at this point.
we really need to know the numbers, Mr. Chair, in order to vote on this.
So is there a move then to pause on this so we can move forward to other amendments? I don't want to spend the next 30 minutes just waiting for information that you've asked on this part that we're going to take a while for the OFB to get. We need to move forward.
This is an OFB provision in the bill that changes it from 15, which is in statute, to 30%. So
that's correct.
I think it's reasonable to expect this kind of information from OFB at this point.
Yes, and as we moved through the bill, we kept putting all kinds of revision and restrictions. All right, so the numbers kept changing. This was not caused by OFB. The changes was caused by this body.
The changes.
All right. No, it was changed by this body, okay?
Right.
Steve, do you have something you can use? Do you have an approximate number, Steve, so we can move on?
Mr. Chairman, right now we're calculating what we're using is about $65 million.
So it would be 30% of $65 million, which equates to
No. 65 million is 30% of 2021 appropriation that is subject to the governor's. That is our guesstimate at this point.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Senator Tello, that answers your question. Now, any other further statements? Other than that, everybody's spoken. We will move to vote and you can close, Senator Jim.
Thank you, my colleagues, and thank you, Steve, for the additional numbers. Again, I go back to our responsibility as senators. You know, it's not that I don't trust the governor. The governor has a great responsibility, but more so do we. The blindness, I think, lies in what we would do by increasing the authority to 30%. We sat here for 2.5 weeks detailing by voting where the money should go. We're doubling the governor's authority to transfer. And do we really think we had the authority to tell her where it should go? I don't say we don't trust her, but I say that we're going to be like 3 blind mice, you know, trying to figure out where the money will be transferred. Remember our experience with Guam Memorial Hospital, when we begged and we fought and we mandated and we asked again and again and again. Until this day, the hospital has not received the $10 million. So with that experience, I asked the colleagues to please consider this. They wanted more, and this was negotiated down to 30%. Keep it at 15, use the CRER, and let's go for the vote. Let's do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Joe. Let's have a roll call. Let's go to the vote.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. He stepped away. I'll go ahead and take roll call.
Yes, please take roll call, please.
Thank you. Amendment proffered by Senator Moylan, line 5, page 14. Chairman San Agustin?
Aye. No. Correction, no.
Chairman San Agustin, nay.
Apologize.
Chairman Rigel?
Nay.
Vice Chair Rigel? Vice Chair Rigel, nay. Vice Chair Shelton?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shelton, nay. Speaker Barnes?
Aye.
Speaker Barnes, nay. Senator Lee?
Aye.
Senator Lee, nay. Senator Terlahi?
Again.
Senator Therese Terlahi, nay. Senator Pito Terlahi?
My vote was yes.
Oh, I apologize.
Aye.
Senator Terlahi, aye. Senator Pito Terlahi?
Nay.
Senator Pito Terlahi?
Nay.
Thank you, sir. Senator Marsh Titano?
Aye.
Senator Marsh Titano, nay. Senator Castro?
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan?
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya?
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson? Vice Speaker Nelson?
To support the amendment, correct? To
Yes.
drop it down to 15%?
Yes.
Okay, Hunga.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez?
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres?
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitigui?
Again.
Senator Taitigui, aye. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chairman San Agustin, we received 8 ayes and 7 nays.
All right, thank you, my colleagues. Motion passes. It'll be engrossed in the bill. We'll now move. We're on page 142. I'm looking for any amendments. I don't see any. We are now on page 143. My colleagues, keep focus, 143. Clock is ticking on us, okay? 144. I don't see a hand, I don't see it, and I'm looking for any amendments. We're on page 145. We're almost done, folks. We're now on page 146. Senator Therese, please.
Yeah, 145, this is in the drive. It's to add a new subsection Q on page 145 to that list of revolving funds. So I would add the Chamorro Land Trust Commission Survey and Infrastructure Fund, and adding this on would allow the Chamorro Land Trust to use this fund for surveying and putting in infrastructure to their properties as the money comes in. So they don't have to wait for us to appropriate anything above the level we've already appropriated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I don't think we need any discussion, or does anybody have reason to discuss? It's to add the Chamorro Land Trust into the revolving fund. Do you need a closing, Senator Therese? Nope.
No, but it's the Survey and Infrastructure Fund. Thank you.
That's correct. Chamorro Land Trust Commission Survey and Infrastructure Fund. Okay, we'll move now to vote. Joe or Mika, whichever one, please take the roll call and let's move to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Therese Tulahi, Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Vice Chair Rizal.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rizal, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Munoz-Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munoz-Barnes, aye. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Tulahi.
Again.
Senator Therese Tulahi, aye. Senator Pt.1.
Again.
Senator Pt.1, aye. Senator Mars Taitano.
Again.
Senator Mars Taitano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moreland.
Aye.
Senator Moreland, aye. Senator Munoz.
This is where the fire trucks came.
Again.
They had to fire.
Senator Munoz, aye.
Senator Castro, thank you. Please mute your phone.
Vice Speaker Nelson.
Again.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez.
Again.
Senator Perez, aye. Senator Torres.
Yes.
Senator Torres, aye. Senator Taitagui.
Aye.
Senator Taitagui, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 15 aye votes.
All right, thank you, my colleagues. The motion passes. It'll be engrossed in the bill. We are now on page 146. I don't see any hands. We're now on page 147. We're almost done, folks. Page 148. All right, we are now on page 149. All right, there you go. Now I see hands. Senator Munoz, please, and then Senator Teller will follow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If OFB can just load it on, Joe can just load it onto the Zoom chat.
Yes, ma'am. Just a second.
Thank you, sir.
If you want, you can go ahead and read it, unless it's very long that we're going to wait for everybody to read it.
It could be followed along. But I'll read it. I'll begin.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is to add a new section 23 to chapter 13, administrative provisions, page 149, line 16. Section 23, funds available to Guam Cancer Trust Fund. A, all funds available to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund in fiscal year 2020 and prior fiscal years shall not lapse and are available to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund in fiscal year 2021. B, notwithstanding the provisions of 26603 E2B, all funds available to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund in fiscal year are not subject to the 75% allocation limitation imposed by said section and may be expended for the purposes provided therein. C, All funds of the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, including funds appropriated by this act, inclusive of those appropriated by Chapter 11, Section 12, are not subject to any transfer authority provided for in this act or any other provision of public law. D, the provision of 11 GCA Chapter 26, Article 3, subsection 26603E and, 6 are not waived. And I put notes in that amendment too, so you can review and see where the subsections are, that you can read along with that. And basically, Mr. Chair, this amendment is pretty self-explanatory. It, number one, it allows the Guam Cancer Trust Fund to keep its lapses. The funds we appropriated yesterday came from Public Law 35-36. We would not want them to lapse on the first day of fiscal year 2021. And number two, it exempts the funds from transfer authority. Number three, the Guam Cancer Trust Fund law allows them to spend only 75% and keep the rest in reserves. They need the money, not reserves, in 2021. This amendment will exempt that, so they can utilize 100% of that money. It makes clear, this number four, it makes clear that no person who misuses Guam Cancer Trust funds will escape justice. And this also will hold the Guam Cancer Trust Fund people accountable for what the money is supposed to be used for. Mr. Chair, this amendment just simply closes the loopholes that may cost the Guam Cancer Trust Fund their appropriation. Thank you, and I hope my colleagues can support it.
All right. Does anybody like to speak to this amendment? I'm looking for hands. I see no hands. Okay, we got hands. Senator Therese and then Senator Sabina. Please, Senator Therese.
Yes, I'm just trying to make sure I read it correctly, Mr. Chair. So, you know, the 75% limit was imposed because the law also provides that 25% of these are, you know, tobacco settlement funds that go to the Healthy Futures Fund. And so part of that in different places throughout the government is supposed to be invested. And so in this law, the original law, 25% of that was supposed to be invested. So it was supposed to be a source of income also, not just, you know, principal. But it really hasn't worked out that way for this trust. But I am still optimistic that it could work out, and they should be investing it that way. My concern is not necessarily for this fiscal year, allowing them to use more than the 75% if they haven't invested that other part of it. But there's also a provision that says no more than 10% shall be utilized for cancer education and outreach programs. I don't agree that be waived. And unfortunately, it's included as part of that one section that we're waiving, I think, because, yeah, I think it's important. Well, for me, I want to prioritize direct services to the patients. And that's why I think that provision was put into law, because they saw a lot of the money being spent on, you know, promotional material and other things. I remember in one session, one of the senators bringing those materials in, but it's, yeah. And we just want, I think the intention behind that 10% limitation was so that 90% of all these funds are going towards direct services, screening, early screening, and those things that really are going to cut down the rates of cancer and assist these patients who are actively fighting cancer. That's my only concern. I wish we could maybe finesse it more. I'm just, I guess, in a rush at this point.
All
but
right.
That's my concern. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Senator Sabina, you have anything to comment?
Yeah, just a very simple question on the B part, or it talks about the fiscal year. It doesn't specify the fiscal year, or if that was intentional. I guess that's a question for the proffer the amendment.
Actually, it's basically for and I also would like to, if I can, even address Senator Terlahi's concern too, that maybe if we, as a compromise, we can utilize this section here just for the amendment that we proffered and passed yesterday, meaning they can just utilize 100% of all of the excess. And if we can maybe specify that, then that would work. That way they get to use a full 100% of whatever they accumulate with the excess funds. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Senator Perez, did that address your concern?
Sorry, my computer froze. Would you mind repeating? I appreciate
Okay,
that.
so this may address your concern as well, the way it would also address Senator Terlahi's concern that the not subject to the 75% would be what would be accumulated in the surplus or the excess funds for the amendment that we passed yesterday. So they get to utilize the full 100% of that.
And not only that, Senator Munoz, you might want to address that on letter A, it refers to FY 2021. So the following letters is applicable to FY 2021. Am I correct?
Exactly,
I
yes.
think that's what you want to know, make sure they identify the fiscal year.
Yes. Does that answer your question, Senator Perez?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Senator Munoz.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, does anybody else would like to speak on this? If not, we'll move to vote. Joe, let's do the roll call. Let's move on this one. This is a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by...
Is it amended though, Mr. Chair? As we spoke about? The amendment as amended?
Which one are you referring to? No, I think Senator Munoz, I apologize, I didn't get you to close, but was there an amendment that was offered? I know that Senator Reese wanted to.
No, the part that you were reading, Mr. Chair, about.
It's on letter A on the amendment. It says all funds available to Guam County Trust Fund in FY 2020 and prior fiscal year shall not lapse and available to Guam County Trust Fund in FY 2021. I'm understanding that this only applies because this is a budget year of 2021. It's not asking for 2022. It's only asking for this year. So that's my understanding of it. Unless you wanted anything specific to say that everything is applicable to 2021 when we're not discussing any other budget but 2021. So I just need to know if you need further clarification that Senator Sabina had asked the fiscal year, and that's how I see it. It's for Guam Cancer Trust Fund in FY 2021 on letter A.
We could put all funds available to the, I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chair. If she wants to be specific, we could.
I mean,
we could include FY 2021 in the letter B section as well.
Yes, and if you could just put back that line that says, however, no more than 10% of the available funds shall be utilized for cancer education and outreach programs.
You want that added, that 10%, because Senator Munoz is asking basically for 100% to be used for the patients. So why would you want to add the 10% if she's asking for 100% availability for patients?
Because otherwise 100% of it might go towards education as opposed to cancer screening, cancer treatment, cancer drugs, cancer services. That's what the 10% does. Yeah. And yeah, otherwise, I think.
Senator Munoz, if you can like to speak about that, please, and then we can close it and explain that, because I understood you want 100% for patients.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, I'm open to that. I'm open to that amendment.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to write that in, please, and then we'll, if we want, we can come back to this, but we want to move forward. I just wanted to make sure that we record what we need to do.
Would that be an amendment that Senator Terlahi would have to make to my amendment?
I can do that. I can do that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay. And if you like, we could set this aside and go to Senator Titagui's amendment and then come back to this one real quick.
Yes, we'll just continue on, but we'll secure that page 149 for you, Senator
Okay.
Muñoz. And who was next on the list? Joe Mesman, I think it was Senator Lee. Ma'am, you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, sorry, before we set that one aside, can I just ask one quick question of the proffer of this amendment?
Sure.
Yeah, to make sure I'm clear. So this amendment would allow the Guam Cancer Trust Fund to use these funds, 100% of these funds, for basically anything they wish. I know that Senator Terlahi had brought up wanting to kind of carve it out and have it go directly to basically directly to direct service to the people who need it, direct service to cancer patients. Is that something that the proffer of this amendment is open to? Because we want to make sure that it's going directly to the people who need it and not to fund any other extra whatever.
Well, the intent of this, Senator Lee, was instead of just 75% going to patient care and assistance, 100% of it was going to go to that specific purpose. That was the intent of that part, to waive the 75-25. But what Senator Terlahi wants to include is 10% of that 100% is going to go to education as well. So that's what she wanted to include. But my intent really was to, instead of just limiting the funds to 75%, to include the entire amount. That was my intent. Not for them to just utilize it for whatever they want, basically for the for patient care.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lee. So, my colleagues, we're going to set this aside. We're going to move to the other amendment to be proffered so that we can come back to it real quick, please. Senator Tello, I think you got an amendment.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, my colleagues. I've already placed the amendment. It's on the, let me pull it up too. Oh, here we go. Sorry.
Joe, can you make sure it's posted on the Zoom, please? Yeah. Thank you.
I placed it on the amendment already. I mean, my amendment up there already. If you see it, it says TT. Yeah,
all right.
That's the one. You find it? Okay.
There you go. Let's go.
So, thank you. Mr. Chair, this is an amendment on page 149, line 12. And it's an amendment to section 22 of chapter, oh wait, this is the wrong. Okay, no, it's the right one. Chapter 8 of the bill to read, section 22, Imagahagan Guahan, prohibited from expending excess fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 21 revenues. Notwithstanding any provisions of law or rule or regulation, Imagahagan Guahan shall not expend general fund revenues collected in excess of the adopted revenue as the basis for the appropriations contained in Public Law 35-36, and this act without a legislative appropriation authorizing the expenditure of such funds. That's my amendment, and I hope everybody has that. Any hands that don't have it, I'll be happy to send it to you personally. But if I could move forward with this, and the reason why that we put this amendment together. So, Mr. Chair, my amendment proposes to ensure that any unappropriated excess revenues that may be realized in FY 2021, as well as 2020, will not be spent unless an appropriation is authorized by this legislature. The amendment proffered is to make clear that all unappropriated excess funds need to be specifically appropriated by the legislature before being spent by the administration and for whatever purposes. This language removes any ambiguity surrounding how and when excess funds should be spent and allows the legislature to maintain and uphold its inherent authority to appropriate. Although we learned just yesterday through the OPA's audit and FY19 financials, the government of Guam ended that financial year with a surplus of $35.6 million, which reduced the cumulative general fund deficit from $83.4 million to $47.8 million. This legislature and the people of Guam had to wait almost 2 full months after the audit should have been released sooner, but we just got it recently. So if the audit was completed and published in a timely manner, senators, we would have received that information well before we started this budget session. This amendment is consistent with legal guidance I received on this topic, which argues that the governor's use of unappropriated excess revenues for any purpose without legislative appropriation would strip the legislature of its organic act authority to appropriate funds. So I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, ensuring the legislative branch and the executive branch respect each other's organic act responsibilities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Anyone on this amendment? Senator Lee, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the proffer of this amendment. I think the intent is very good. We do need certain information to be able to move forward and be able to cobble together a budget that makes sense. So I can appreciate some of the points that were raised. But if I could just ask a question to the proffer of the amendment, Mr. Chair, I believe that there is case law that solidifies that the governor's authority to use unappropriated excess revenue for tax refunds. So when we say that this amendment protects excess funds, and I'll quote, for whatever purpose, is the proffer of this amendment asserting that this amendment would prohibit the governor from using this money on tax refunds?
Senator Taitigui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. And thank you for understanding the jobs that we hold as well as administration. But what it does is there's money that's been appropriated every year for tax refunds. And it was brought to our attention by Mr. Byrne that the EITC funding on reimbursement also assists into paying out tax refunds. So, you know, if in the event that there's an additional funding needed for tax refunds, then it's as simple as, you know, what the governor does and just go ahead and spend it, but she would have to come to us to seek extra funding for tax refunds. But the law basically says any excess revenue goes into a rainy day fund. If you look at the current law on funding, and then in that rainy day fund, it's specific on how much funding, where she can spend that excess revenue. And I was really surprised because when we talked to Mr. Byrne on that rainy day fund, we found out it was used for tax refunds. But if you look at the law, when I spoke with our legal, and we found out this was supposed to be for deficit reductions and not tax refunds. So it's kind of odd that, you know, Mr. Byrne was telling us that, well, I thought you guys want us to pay the tax refund. So absolutely, but to do it correctly. So does she have the authority, or I guess she uses their Section 30 money, like I mentioned, and she also uses EITC, the reimbursements. And that's not what I know.
To interrupt you, but I think you mean ACTC, not EITC.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and
yes, ATC. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah, so I don't know if you would like to answer this question, or if you could give us a little bit more information. But when is a fund determined to be in excess in accordance with government accounting, or maybe the rules by by GASB?
Normally at the end of the fiscal year, Senator, financial reports are done, but these are unaudited, they're unofficial financial reports. They're just reports just to indicate what the balances are at a specific time. In this case, normally at the end of the fiscal year, it'll show you a September 30th run date. But again, officially, those balances are not made official until the audit is completed.
Right.
So for informational purposes, you use it. For planning purposes, you can use it, but you cannot basically just make a definite say that, that's the amount until it's actually certified and verified in the audit.
And I just wanted to confirm with you, Steve, that tax refunds are not appropriated. They're just set aside. Is that correct?
We take off the amount that we estimate for these tax refunds off the top of the general fund in the beginning of the fiscal year. Yes.
Right. That's the 125 million, right?
Yes. Yes.
And they can pay the refunds with or without legislative authority, correct?
That part, I think it would still be a requirement through appropriations to pay for the tax refunds, because it is tapping into the revenues of the government. And from my knowledge, all revenues generated, at least out of the general fund, is supposed to be appropriated.
And that's the reason why we set the 125 aside.
Yeah, we just set it aside just to make sure that we budget and allocate for that. Yes, you're correct. But it is part of the budget bill, so it is basically appropriated because it is part of the revenue base.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Leach. Anyone else on the amendment? Anyone else on the amendment? Senator Terlahi?
Thanks. If I could just ask OFB, so this language was not in last year's budget bill, so I just wanted to know what you intended it, how you intended it to act. You're authorizing her to utilize excess revenues. For what purpose? And just in your previous answer, yeah, you said these would not be realized until after the end of the fiscal year. Do you think they are using excess revenues throughout the fiscal year?
Oh, that Senator, I cannot comment on that. I don't know. I would like to think that whatever revenues they're using, it's revenues that have been appropriated accordingly. And any other excess revenues, I don't think, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't have any information on that one.
All right, so what was your intention in this bill, or Mr. Chair? Yeah, I mean, with this section.
Again, yeah,
this is
again,
a new type of language for.
Yeah, again, working with the administration on this early on, and considering all the situation at hand, the difficulties, the unknowns, et cetera, we were just trying to figure out ways how to provide at least the administration some method of trying to fund these agencies, trying to meet mandates, trying to help agencies out there, meet its goals and missions. And this was one of the things that the administration asked. And I didn't see any problem doing it. There are still restrictions on this. And like I said, it's the same situation like this year. If they utilize these funds, I would think with the good intended purpose, then it'll help the government. And from what I hear about the excess of how they use the 2019 paying down the deficit, I think that was a good thing. So that was the intent of this provision, Senator.
But do you think they used excess revenues in FY20? Because this is telling them to use excess revenues above the FY21 projection in FY21?
Well, right now, if you look at the CRER report, it does say that we are tracking higher than our the projected amount. But then again, we got at least postings of 2 more months on the report, and the way things have been for the last week, 2 weeks, it's definitely going to be, there's going to be a change. So I don't know if that excess is going to be there at the end of the fiscal year. Whether or not they're using that money right now, I couldn't say.
Okay, well, maybe let me rephrase then. If they asked you for this provision to authorize them to use in FY21 excess revenues, it sounds to me like they're admitting that they can use excess 21 revenues in FY21, just like we asked them to do for the hospital, $10 million, and that there's no reason for them to say they have to wait for an audit or whatever. We know we will have deficit FY19, FY20, and part of our deficit is tax refunds. For right now, we have a tax refund deficit for sure. And yeah, I just think that's very ironic of them, saying it very nicely, to say, please put this language in and allow us to use excess funds this year when that's exactly what we've been asking them to do for, critical repair and critical needs. I think that's of course what we are going to need to do, is to allow them to use excess funds, but I support the amendment that requires them to tell us there are excess funds and that they are going to spend it. I do not agree with the do whatever you want mentality, because when we asked them, where did you get the war claims money? They refused to tell us what source that was from, except, that's from the general fund. Well, was that excess revenue in the general fund? Was that money appropriated for another agency in the general fund? Was that the 10 million that was supposed to go to the hospital? Excess revenue from 2019? I mean, that I want to know. And so I just think we cannot, as a legislature, do our job if we're not going to ask for some kind of accountability. And I think it behooves us to act quickly. If they say, okay, look, things are looking good. And of course, they're going to have to convince us, just like the argument that's been made against me appropriating excess revenues for mental health, public health in 21. Oh, but we don't know, things might change. Exactly. So why should they use it if things might change and we don't know? So that argument should wipe out this provision. And if you're not going to wipe it out, then demand some kind of accountability, or we as a legislature are not doing any type of check and balance. And it's all about priorities. That's our real role. And if we want to prioritize tax refunds, which is what I want to do, then I think holding them accountable, as this amendment is trying to do, and as long as we commit to acting quickly, there's no problem with that. We've seen the speaker call us in on 2 hours notice. So there is no reason that we cannot act together. But to allow only one party to act and the rest of us to sit here in the dark while the people of Guam are being told there's no money for this, there's no money for that, there's no money for public health to operate, let alone to deal with a pandemic, I will not do that. I want to see, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and it should be good for the people of Guam. That's what we really need. And so let's just be logical here. You can't use that argument at one point and then say, let's let the governor do it. What we're restricting ourselves from doing, we're going to allow the governor to do without having to tell us where any of this money comes from, or really how reliable of a resource that is. And that's all I'm asking. No one is trying to tie our hands. We understand what we are facing, but that's how we build trust. You just open it up, bring everybody along, show them this is reliable, and convince us. They should be here to convince us why this is such a great provision that they asked you to put it in. Because I would very much like to ask them, then where's the $10 million for that hospital? And why in the world can we do this for public health? Straight off the bat. Because that's the amendment that I made that was voted down. So thank you. Mr. Chair, I don't know who I'm talking to here. Are you here? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Talahi. Anyone else on the amendment? Senator Jim. Senator Moylan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel this amendment is simple, and if there are excess revenues, which I'm not really optimistic that they are, then it should be the legislature and not the governor who will decide how these monies will be expended. And as the last speaker eloquently said, you know, we've been asking DOA, we've been asking BBMR for this, and basically, as spokespersons for the governor, they said, we have no say, the legislature has no say, and it's up to us, meaning Adelou. To that, I just got two things to say. We are the checks and balances, and if we're not going to be the checks and balances, then it's about time then, I guess, that this legislature just needs to be part-time, and we need to get the public hearing moving on that. So because this is exactly where we're heading. So I support this amendment because it's the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Anyone else on the amendment? Anyone else on the amendment? Chairman San Agustin is back. Chairman San Agustin.
Yep, I have no comment. If there's nobody to speak, Joe, let's go to the vote.
Mr.
Oh,
Chair,
Senator Tello, you want to close? Please go ahead and close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank those who spoke on the amendment and brought up some really, really good points. You know, this is not just about my amendment. This is all our amendments. This is something that we should all come together and demand, because we do hold the purse strings and we do have accountability, responsibilities to the people of Guam. It's our responsibility. We have every opportunity too, when there's excess revenue, to pay tax refunds. We've been asking the administration to pay the tax refunds, you know, how far are they in? And we're getting these reports so far, so late in the game before we realize it hasn't been paid out. And now it's only when we're screaming. Well, now this legislature has the opportunity to pay those tax refunds out. We can follow and find out how many need to be paid out, who are up and who meet the criteria to pay out. And we can do that as a legislature. And then maybe the governor would be happy about that, because then maybe we'll stop complaining, because we can utilize this excess revenue to pay tax refunds. And I bet you 10-1 on top of public health, that's right up there, neck to neck. And again, you know, I ask the senators to just think back this last year, or even in 2018, trying to get information from the administration. They weren't giving it to us. We still haven't had a lot of our questions answered, like Senator Therese had mentioned. This amendment is our amendment. It's not my amendment, it's our amendment. It's what the people expect us to be, and that's to be accountable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Joe, let's take the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment proffered by Senator Taitigui, Chairman San Agustin.
Pass.
Chairman San Agustin, pass. Vice Chair Rajal.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rajal, aye. Vice Chair Shelton.
Again.
Vice Chair Shelton, aye. Speaker Winya-Barnes.
Pass.
Speaker Winya-Barnes, pass. Senator Lee.
Again.
Senator Lee, aye. Senator Therese Talahi.
Again.
Senator Therese Talahi, aye. Senator Pt.1 Talahi.
Again.
Senator Pt.1 Talahi, aye. Senator Marsh Titano.
Again.
Senator Marsh Titano, aye. Senator Castro.
Again.
Senator Castro, aye. Senator Moylan.
Aye.
Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya.
Again.
Senator Munya, aye. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Ungan.
Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Paris.
Again.
Senator Paris, aye. Senator Torres.
No.
Senator Torres, nay. Senator Taitui.
Again.
Senator Taitui, aye. Chairman San Agustin.
Aye.
Chairman San Agustin, aye. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Again.
Speaker Munya Barnes, aye. Mr. Chair, the amendment received 14 ayes and 1 nay.
Thank you, my colleagues. The motion passes. We're on page 149. I'd like to ask for a 5-minute recess. All right, folks, and for the people of Guam, please be patient. We will be back real quick.